All right, welcome back to the solution. So we want a for loop for odd numbers between 0 and 100. So it's actually quite a short code if you do realize the solution here. Basically, all you need to do is you need a for, then x in range. And then the question is, what is the range? We start at 0. Then we want to stop at 100, right? And now all we got to do is use a step of 2. And we start at, 1. Why? So 0 is, first of all, we do know 0 is an even number. So we can ignore 0. First odd number is 1, with which we start. Then we go to the next number would be 2, which would be even. So we don't want to have that. The next odd number would be 3, that we want. What would be the next odd number? 5. What would be the next? 7. Each odd number is the last odd number plus 2. So why don't we skip over the even numbers and just increase by 2? And again, we then go from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7 to 9 to 11 and so forth. And if we do so, we have all the odd numbers until we reach 99 and we ignore 100. Cool. Now coming to the next exercise. This is the more tricky one, I would guess, and I'm looking forward to seeing if you can answer that on your own or if you need maybe the help, which I'm happy to help you with. But it's more a harder one. You should create now a loop which counts the numbers of even and odd numbers, only integers, no decimal points, in the list below. The list below is missing, so I'm typing that right now so you can record that. The list we call numbers, and it's a list between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, I missed that in the template, so feel free to type that right now. So you should somehow go through that loop, count how many odd numbers there are, count how many even numbers there are, and then in the end, give me 2 return strings, which you then write there, so 2 prints, which tell me how many odd and even numbers there are in this list. So feel free to pause, type the numbers to your list, try to solve it on your own, and afterwards watch the solution, which will be in the same video, and the solution will be shown in a second when I say starting now, starting now. So here's the solution. So we want to count. For that, we need some variable to which we can make the count. So we need a counting variable. So, and one for odd and one for even numbers, because we want to count both. So let's just make 2 count variables, count even and count odd. However, we first have to declare their starting values. And since we do start counting with, we didn't find any odd or even number, we start from 0. And then once we see an odd or even number, we increase that by 1 always until we have the final number. For that, we need to loop through the list, through the array. So let's make a for loop for x in numbers. All right. So what do we do now? So we have basically if even and elif odd. That's basically our main thing here. How do we check for even? Well, we already had that when we were at operators. So when we were at operators, we looked at the modulo function, which helped us to identify if a number is even or odd. Because a number modulo 2 always shows off what the remainder, the rest is of a division. And the remainder, if it's 1, it's an odd number. And if it's 0, it's an even number. Because if I divide an even number by 2, the division just works with a remainder of 0. However, if it's odd, it's always one more than an even number. So there should always be a remainder of 1 if I divide by 2. So if I want to check for even, I just go to an if function, check if x modulo 2 equals 0, and then I should do something. And if I want to check for odd, I should do x modulo 2 equals 1, and then I should do something. But what do we do if it's like that? Well, we want to count even numbers then, and want to increase that by 1. So count even, so the old value, now currently 0 plus 1. Why we could do it like that we say, okay, count even is 0 plus 1 is then 1, and then we store it in count even. From now on, it's 1. The next time we go here, it's 1 plus 1, then it's 2, then it's 2 plus 1, then 3. Or we could do it like that. There's a shortcut in programming for that, because we have to do it quite often. Increase the value of a variable by a certain amount, like 1. And to not always write that, we have the shortcut in program, which is plus equals, which is basically the same as increase the variable to the left by the amount to the right. So we increase it by 1. So that basically means we have to do the same here, but for count odd. And that should be it. Now we have all conditions. So what about the else case? Well, first of all, we could have made this the else case, because that should be all cases. But I now want to show you catching errors. There won't be an error if everything works out, but sometimes you did miss a condition or whatever. But you implemented all conditions which are logical there. So there shouldn't be an else case. But if there's an else case, something went wrong. So why don't you use it for debugging and telling you that something's wrong? You could print error, then you would know something is wrong if an error is printed. All right. Since I like my code more like that, if there are no blank lines in between, I deleted them, and this is then our code. And then we can go to the left and we are outside of the loop. But then we have to print the return strings. So there are count even. Now, I don't like that. Let's make it, it doesn't matter how we call it, but the number of even numbers is, then we don't have to do a second plus here. And we can make a double point, because that's more my style. We did, sorry, we did. Then that's odd numbers. This is count odd. All right, so now we shouldn't see anything from the loop, because there shouldn't be error. The loop should just run through. There's no print within the loop, so we don't see what's happening. We should only see the end result, because this is the only print we will see. And we then should see how many odd and even numbers there are. And we have 4 even and 5 odd numbers. Is that correct? Did our loop work? Let's just count even numbers. First even number is 2. Second is a 4, then there's a 6, then there's an 8, which is exactly 4 numbers. Let's count odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 5 numbers. All right, so 5 odd numbers, everything worked out. So coming to the last part, functions in the next video.